Hey guys, welcome to another Bat Rep. This is Vaulsc. We're going to be looking at a game between Aleph and PanO, and it's going to be on the grid. This is a mission where you have to go and designate as many of the 9 objective markers as you can, and then destroy them after them are designated, so that you can get the large swings in objective points, to have more designated antennas at the end of the game, that's 3, and to have destroyed more, that's 3. So the idea is to designate them first, then destroy them. Your opponent can't take them. If you get 5 out of 9, then you effectively get 6 points that your opponent can't get, and you automatically win. There's a tiebreaker though, designated target, so if you've both done the same number of antennas and designations at the end, the designated target can be a tiebreaker. If you've both killed the designated target, well, you can further tiebreak it by killing it with your Datatracker if your opponent hasn't done that. This is a great mission to be going first. I think that it's really useful for first turn just because you can be the first person to actually start designating and destroying them. So let's just have a look at our battlefield for this one. I'm just going to move my, my good old cam out of the way a little bit. Just going to chuck it over here. All right. I've also bought a new piece of terrain, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So these dots here are the saturation zone, right through here. And if I get a different color now, and maybe we'll grab red, and the deployment zones are going to be across here, round about there. And then there's 9 objectives to go after through here. You can designate the markers at any time, the objectives, but you can't destroy them until the second game round. So if you're the player going first, you have the first opportunity to start destroying them. Now, if they're already designated by your opponent, you can designate them and bring them back to you to swing them back, but if they've been destroyed, well, they can't be destroyed a second time. So my strategy for winning the grid is to spend the first turn either designating as many consoles you can, or even better, if you can go and take your Datatracker and kill the enemy designated target first, and use your first turn to do that, just since there may not be a better opportunity later, and because your Datatracker might be killed by your opponent if you don't. That's a really great first turn tactic. And then for the second and third game turns, just completely focus on designating the objectives and destroying them. And being the player with the first turn means you effectively have the initiative, you have the tempo, you can do that before your opponent does it. Also a really good mission for missile launchers and linked teams, because even though there's a saturation zone there, you are technically allowed to split your burst, one shot over there, one shot over there, and the saturation zone of removing the -1 burst from your firing only affects each particular target, apparently. So if your burst 2 from being a link, one shot there, still one shot there, one shot there, as opposed to firing an HMG at one particular target, saturation zone lowers you down to 3. The objectives themselves are armor 4 with 2 wounds, so the missile launcher with the anti-tank rounds has the best ability to do that at range than any other weapon. So that's the way to go. Feuerback can be alright, sniper rifle can be alright. Other than that, you're going to be trying to take out the objectives with stuff like double action close combat weapons. It's a good mission, though. I think that just because it's deceptively hard to destroy the objectives, then going first doesn't guarantee a win. It's just a slight advantage, in my opinion. I've also picked up this new piece of terrain. It's not all of these items combined. It's just this building through here, and these big stairways here, which I think are really well designed because they allow you to move up and down without really any penalty. They add a little bit of verticality to the game without really getting in the way. And this shop front is really cool. It's quite a good way to capture the imagination with the McMurray's Beast of a Burger shop and the Spetsnaz coffee here at Maya Cafe. So we'll be looking out for that. Here it is on the other side, and it's cool how you can place a lot of other terrain on top of it. Okay, so I managed to win the lieutenant role, and I'm going for first turn for the reasons I described earlier. I'm playing Aleph here, running into PanO, and this is a picture of my post-human sniper, just deployed in such a way that he'll be able to get a long sight line through the middle of the table to surprise my opponent, potentially, but also he'll be useful there because he'll be able to see a lot of the objectives and fire his sniper rifle at them to destroy them, since they have an anti-material round. Aha, okay, so the picture I just took was of a post-German here. And just since the blue doesn't stand out very well, I'm going to use pink for this one. So that's where the sniper rifle is. We've got a flash pulse here and a minesweeper bot there. Crackout Renegade with just a single SMG. You take that one because you want him to have the double action close combat weapon for this mission. Very, very important for attacking objectives. The great thing about it is with Berserk, you're getting +6 to your roll. It becomes a normal roll, but you're not really going to be attacked back by the objective, so a Berserk is a wonderful way of actually killing these objectives. Here's my Dazu Fort Observer prone behind the planter. Really, really powerful unit for moving out and actually doing the fort observing to designate the targets. This is my designated target further out here, a combined army one. Through the middle of the table, okay, grab the pen again. The post-human Mark IV with heavy rocket launcher. This guy is absolutely brilliant for slowing your opponent down. He's armor 4 and 2 wounds. It only costs 20 points. An absolute steal when it comes to being an ARO piece. He doesn't have courage. He doesn't have a cube. But really, he's just there to block your opponent. And there may be some games where his SMG does actually come into play if they come too close. So he's prone here. He's planning on actually moving somewhere further out. Then you've got the Softprotect back here. This is the other proxy with the hacking device. Really efficient hacker. He's got NWI, so if they're trying to kill him through a repeater, he might survive longer thanks to NWI. Dakini, always take the Dakini HMG just because he synergizes well with assisted fire, and a repeater here in the form of a minesweeper bot nearby to help him out. Left-hand flank, the other Crackout Renegade over here with SMG for the reasons we just discussed. This Yuching HVT is actually representing a Diva Lieutenant, prone behind the crate, and the other Probot Minesweeper there. That was the other one on that side. We've got a Naga Killer Hacker up here, planning on pressing this button before the Crackout moves over here with his double action close combat weapon. This particular guy on this side of the table rolled up Climbing Plus and Extra Speed. The other guy that we just saw rolled up Dogged and Total Immunity. Now this is a model of Miranda Ashcroft, but she is being used to represent or proxy as a Myrmidon with a Spitfire. I had enough points for that, and the Myrmidon Spitfire is a good throwaway piece that can get a little bit of damage done during the stage of the game where you need to attack, but it's also a form of smoke grenades as well, which can be really good for getting onto the objectives in close combat if there's an enemy ARO piece nearby. My opponent puts down the designated target here, which is good because I can now choose my Myrmidon as a Datatracker to go after it and actually get the points earlier in the game. Quite like that. He's got an engineer on the side of the table here. In the distance, there's a Kamau sniper. There's a Bagmari with HMG, but they only have a very thin line of sight through this particular spot here. We'll deal with that shortly. Yotum in the deployment zone for my opponent, as well as a Crackout, which I think rolls up Super Jump, if I recall correctly. I can't quite remember what he got. The Bulleteer back there as well. The mighty Yotum with the engineer helping him out. And in his side of the table, over the right, we've got Joan of Arc, and that's why he's taking a Tech B and a War Core, just because they become regular units when the Joan model's in the list. And there's our Kamau and our Bagmari there. So, pretty cool list. I actually quite like this list, limited insertion. So with me, okay, so a little bit of a closer up look at Jones. That's what his model is looking like. So with me going first, there's a very blurry photo of the Spitfire, so a bit of a better photo here. Spitfire moving down the right-hand flank, and the idea here is to try and actually get into a shootout with his designated target and pick up a full 4 points right off the bat. I think it's 4 anyway. So you get 2 points to kill a designated target, and then to kill a designated target with your Datatracker, another 2. So that's what she is going to try and do. Now, his engineer is actually just peeking out the side of a building, which leads me to believe, well, maybe it's actually a hollow Echo 1 of a Sepulchre Knight. Because last game, if you guys remember me playing against him last time, Yuching against Pano, there was a Sepulchre Knight. But turns out, wasn't. So it's Spitfire against Engineer, but he does manage to tank the armor and goes into cover with a Guts check. So that enables me to move around a bit further. This is the position of the engineer here. Myrmidon just moving through, getting line of sight to him, so he just falls back next to where the Yotum is. But this is going to allow me to move through and take out this guy, designated target. So that's the positioning here. The first attempt at killing it does not succeed, so I had to continue moving closer, but we eventually got there and steamrolled him. So Myrmidon kills him. That's all I really needed to achieve with my first turn. Even with the saturation zone there, Spitfire, 4 dice goes down to 3, still managing to take out the designated target. So I'm 4-0 up in this game, but it's really going to be about the designated targets later on. This will just be a potential tiebreaker. Given that I had a few orders left, I could retreat with a Myrmidon and fight another day, but I think it would be better to move in and potentially kill the Engineer and the Krakot, just because by killing those two models, I'm removing models which could potentially revive the Jotun or do a lot of damage to me. Also, killing both these models remove potential ways of actually destroying the designated objectives later on. So I decided to risk it by moving through here. Now, this is the point the Myrmidon ends up. She had to sort of prone and crawl through the battlefield to avoid the long-range line of fire from the Kemal sniper on the other side of the table. But once she gets into position, just moves to this specific spot here because that's going to create an arrow from the Krakot and the Engineer and the Jotun. And depending on what they do, she can either fork out a Spitfire round or Nanopulsar or just throw a smoke grenade at her feet. What he decides to do is he decides to engage with the Krakot. He dodges with the Engineer and the Jotun just fires the flamethrower right through there. So my response is just to fire the Spitfire, hoping to take down either or both of the Krakot and the Engineer. Actually need to clarify something at this point. Just going to take this away. My previous order was to move to this location here with the Myrmidon first, which forced a change-facing dodge from all 3 models, and then I was able to move here. So this is where I started when I spent the regular order. So I moved into close combat with the Engineer. Then we saw those 3 reactions, the engage, the dodge, and the flamethrower. And then I fire with the Spitfire at the 2 models in front of me. This results in the Krakot being hit with a wound going down. The Engineer does manage to pass the dodge and survives. No, Engineer doesn't pass the dodge, but passes the armor save and survives. And the Jotun fires its flamethrower at the Myrmidon, who rolls like an 18 and survives as well. I believe the ODD is affected by the flammable effect. So we are ending with a situation where the Myrmidon is snugly into close combat with the Engineer, which was really an acceptable thing, really. It was the optimal spot for her to be in, because it means that to remove her, well, he doesn't really want to go into close combat with the Myrmidon. But to shoot at her, he's going up against ODD and the close combat penalty, so that's likely to destroy the Engineer. So I was quite happy with that outcome. Elsewhere, my Proxy Mark IV started the game up here prone, decided to move back down the stairway to avoid the Jotun, and eventually come around here, where he's got just enough line of sight to see past that objective there, and through around to here, just because Joan of Arc may decide to go for my designated target. So the Mark IV proxy with the rocket launcher is just trying to provide some arrows for models coming around the other side of this particular building, and generally to be very annoying. He's got armor 5, he's got 2 wounds, and my opponent doesn't really achieve very much by killing him. So really good roadblock. Elsewhere, Sophitek just goes into suppression fire because I had a spare order. Don't really like doing that, but hey. Okay, so he's got a Jotun who's prepared to move out, decides not to shoot into the close combat initially, but just really moves out to get into a better position. This is a coordinated order, so he brings the Tech Bee with him as well, which is just represented by this model here, just coming out from this little stairwell and towards the center of the table. Now the Jotun and the Bulleteer are being coordinated by a command token here, coordinated order. And I realized at this point, well, they've walked directly into line of fire of my post-human sniper. And if they shoot at me, they're going to get nothing done because the Bulleteer cannot hit at -12. The Jotun could fire a single shot and needing 3 to hit. And by doing this, it slows the turn down. It stops them from using their second shot skill to move. They then have to deal with the sniper. It's at a risk, though, because if he starts moving out and starts firing, you know, burst 4 with the Jotun down to 3 dice, 3 burst 3, and if he comes within 32 inches, he'll eventually kill my sniper, and the shock ammunition will really trump the NWI. and I need the sniper for killing objectives with. But I felt like it was worth it just because I was in such a good position, and there was also a possibility of me dodging the post-human sniper back into cover after this. So I decided to go for it. So post-human sniper revealed here. You can see the Yotum and the bullet here as a blurry blob in the distance, but snapping off the shot up against ODD from the bullet here, so it's really just a 50-50 as to whether I hit him or not. Like I said, it's risky, but the point of this is not really to get the kill straight off the bat. It's just to make his turn a lot more difficult. Luckily, though, the shot connects and the bullet here is destroyed by the sniper round. I was really happy with that outcome. Just showing another photo here of this building. I really quite like it. You've got the cafe sort of set up there, and the ability to walk directly over the building and actually play a lot of the game on top of the ceiling. Okay, so there it is. Bullet here goes down. Wound marker next to him. Bagmari now moves out. Now, Bagmari is trying to get into a position where he's going to be able to just cut across this particular line here and have a shootout with the post-human heavy rocket launcher. The problem with this, though, is it's just an HMG, and he's going through a saturation zone. His MSV does actually manage to ignore the little planter forest, whereas the heavy rocket launcher doesn't. But his first shot results in no damage. The second shot results in just a wound inflicted. And the post-human passes its courage check, so I've just already wasted a couple of orders there. The Yotum now moves up onto the back of this truck here, using the front cab of the truck as a cover. And the post-human, although I could shoot at the tag and potentially do a little bit of damage to it, decided to dodge, just because it's more important to keep the post-human alive rather than maybe doing a little bit of damage to the Yotum. It's unlikely I'll kill him in this turn. So that's what happened. The post-human passes a dodge, gets into cover. There we go there. So if you look carefully at this image, the post-human was there, dodges back next to where this flash pulse bot is, out of line of sight now, and we've still got the beautiful post-human with heavy rocket launcher there, and of course our Dazu prone behind the planter. Okay. My opponent still needs to get rid of the Myrmidon and decides to shoot at the Myrmidon, I believe, with the Yotum with shock rounds, and this one was a bit awkward because he's ballistical 15, I think he's within 6 inches, and he's up against ODD and the close combat. So after he shoots, I think he rolled a 1, so he did get a single round into close combat with me to hit the Myrmidon, which does kill the Myrmidon. But a couple of rounds go into the engineer as well, so he's taken out his own model in the process, which I'm fine with. He cannot repair the Yotum. The engineer cannot use his decharges or specialist ability to interact with the objectives now that he's dead. And the Myrmidon wasn't really contributing much to the game anyway, while in close combat there. Now, what he decides to do is bring out his Order Sergeant. Order Sergeants cost an extra SWC in vanilla lists, but he's got Joan of Arc, which gives you an extra, increase in your cap for SWCs, so this is pretty cool. Decides to start designating some of the objectives, just because even though I can take them back in my turn, he may be able to designate more than I can actually designate in my turn, leaving him with some that he's already got pressed, or captured, so to speak, for the next round. This does put him line of sight with a Naga, but the Naga, because it cannot hit at that range, decides to just hang out and do nothing. The Naga is actually discovered at some point by the Order Sergeant, but he's using his shots not to shoot at the Naga, but to designate the objectives, which was quite interesting. Note that he's also going through a saturation zone here, so shooting the Naga wouldn't have been particularly effective. Alright, and then following up with his turn here, you can see here he's still got a Tech B, which is able to move into the safety of the stairwell. And the Walker is able to move a little bit to cover this angle here, and he's able to go prone with his Order Sergeant, which is quite an important move. Alright, so my turn. We've got a Crackot Renegade going impetuous, closer to the Yotum, just a bit closer to this objective here. Luckily, he doesn't come into line of sight of the Yotum, that's quite important. So I might be able to use my Naga to press the button and then blow it up with the Crackot. Although, annoyingly, the Naga is in the same order pool, which only has 3 orders left, or 4 orders left, as the posthumous sniper, and the sniper is going to be needing to do a lot of work this turn. So, just a bit of a zoom out. What we've got going here is that the DASU is moving across the field to get to this position, where it's going to be able to get line of sight over here to this objective, and to this objective, and to this objective here, and this objective over here. And then the posthuman's going to be able to come in from this field and actually blast them from that angle. So that's the plan, while a marker state can't get hit by the Jotun, of course. So that was more of a blurry photo. Let's go to the next one. So here comes the DASU, just as described, just going after the objectives, and over the course of several orders, with such good willpower, is able to designate all of the ones that matter. So there you can see a look from the midfield, picks up this one, picks up this one, picks up this one, picks up this one. So that's 4 of them. If I can destroy 4 of them, that will mean I can sort of just wait for the next game round to destroy the last one, and it'll be really difficult for my opponent to win. Posthuman moving out now, and I realized, hang on a second, I need this guy to do a lot of work. He's only got 4 orders to spend, and every order is going to be splitting the burst, 1 sniper shot at this, 1 sniper shot at that. To have avoided the Jotun, though, I would have had to spend a single order re-camoing myself, and then a whole nother order moving out of his line of sight. So the more efficient way of doing it is just moving and shooting. Now, sadly, that does mean the Jotun can actually shoot at me from long range, needing a 6. And if he does hit, there's a small possibility I might still survive because I've got NWI, because he'd be using the explosive round rather than the shock round, surely. So I decided to risk it, just knowing that I still had the Krakots to go and blow up objectives, even if I lost this this model. Now, annoyingly, my opponent specifically rolled a 6, which is a crit, and the resulting 2 armor saves were not passed, and the posthuman goes down immediately. Luckily, though, I did manage to gun down the objectives a little bit with the sniper, and at least do a bit of damage to them. So that was unfortunate. Now, given that I have remaining orders in Group 2, seeing as I won't be using the posthumous sniper anymore, the Naga moves over to the objective, and after a couple of attempts does press it, allowing the Krakot to move up the objective and blow it up with his double-action close combat berserkingness onto this objective. So that's 1 objective designated and destroyed for Aleph. You can sort of see a bit of an overview of the battlefield there of what that was like. So there's the Krakot moving into that one. Not this one, this one... No, it's these 4 here which are secured by the Naga. I've also got the Krakot moving out from over here, and he's going to have a go at this other objective right there. Now, importantly, the Krakot on my left managed to roll up Total Immunity and Dogged, so as the Jotun shoots his massively powerful explosive round here, I can only take 1 wound at a time, and I can sustain 2 wounds this turn. So the Krakot moves on to the objective, almost destroys it, gets hit by the Jotun, takes a wound, has another go at it, and does die the second time, but he does blow up the objective as well. So that's 2 objectives destroyed by the Krakots, and I think the sniper did get the 3rd kill. So I've got 3 objectives designated and destroyed. So at the end of the turn, the DASU just goes back into Teo Camo mode. So a bit of a zoom out here. The Jotun is moving from the cover of the truck to this point here. He has to recapture these with his Order Sergeant. He's already got this one here, so he's going to start blowing it up with the DEP and the explosive charge from his heavy machine gun, multi-heavy machine gun. As he moves forward, he does destroy the one on his left, so there was an objective around here which was previously designated by the Grokman. He does manage to blow that up, but he's going to need to pick this one up as well. Now, my opponent at this point in the game starts rolling pretty poorly for some of his shots. He starts missing some of the shots with the Jotun, and he starts missing some of the whip attempts with the Order Sergeant, very crucial. As he moves around here, he decides to actually get into a position where he can shoot my Krakot, and he's doing that to remove the ability for me to actually get any more objectives. So that's one way of playing this mission. Just coming up on top of here, again, as I said, each order he's moving and shooting, and some of the shots, since he only gets 1 at a time, fail to destroy objectives, which is very inefficient, unfortunately. Does get to a point, though, where you can see the back of the Krakot space, even though he's prone, just because he's such a large model, silhouette-wise. Shoots the Krakot and does nail him, so the Krakot's destroyed. That's going to prevent me from moving up here later and picking up the middle objective in my turn. So, yeah, fairly decent play. Doesn't manage to get line of sight to the Naga, though, so he's continuing to move and continuing to shoot. He has finally designated all three of the middle ones with his Crocman, though. So I think he managed to destroy one more objective with the Jotun this turn, but doesn't really get very far. Certainly doesn't destroy as many as he was planning to, and ends up with the Jotun back behind the building here. So the Crocman goes prone. He realizes he has to do this because if he doesn't, then I could spend my following turn just designating everything, and he'd have to actually manually move over there with the Specialist, which would be a lot more difficult than just designating them with a Fort Observer. So correctly puts the Crocman prone. So my turn, after thinking about it for a while, I've lost everything that can destroy objectives except for a Sophitek with decharges, and that is not going to be an efficient way of going out and actually recapturing the objective. So my plan is to redesignate all of the objectives to my side, just to force him to do the work and potentially fail whip checks when he goes out to grab them. And also to potentially kill one or two models to reduce orders on his side, and then lay mines and just put flash pulses out everywhere I can. Because if I can flash pulse the Jotun as he's trying to blow something up, and he fails the BTS check, then that'll make it really hard for him to actually go and get the objectives he's going after. So the Dazyu moving out initially and designating a whole bunch of objectives. Now, at this point, she can actually get in onto the Bagmari if she comes far enough across, but initially just avoiding that line because she wants to lay some mines here, here, and around about here. The idea here is that this mine will go off if the Crocman stands up. This mine will go off if the tech comes down to this objective here. And this mine is going to go off if I actually come into a face-to-face shootout with the Bagmari. So that's exactly what we start planning on doing. So there's the first two mines there as I described. And then the third mine will come down here. And when the Dazyu does move far enough into line of the Bagmari, finally, he's also going to get hit by this mine which goes off. So he rolls a dodge up and does manage to dodge the mine successfully. The Dazyu does manage to connect a hit with the combo rifle through the saturation zone, no less, but does not destroy the Bagmari, unfortunately. So we're ending up with a Dazyu out in the midfield, laid all of the mines now, and just standing out in the open, just because she's got a flash pulse there, potentially going to be able to hit the Jotun with that. Elsewhere in my turn, this is still me moving up with the Dazyu, but the plan here was just to move the Dazyu into line of fire, just to force him to take some arrows when it was his turn. Dazyu versus Jotun with the combi rifle. Combi rifle wins, but doesn't do any damage predictably because armor 10. +3 for the cover. I still have some orders left, so Dakini having a go at the Jotun, not to inflict damage but in my turn, but just be annoying in his turn, because if he gets really unlucky and he's having to just move out and not interact with me, but to just shoot the objectives and just take hits every time, if he gets really unlucky, he may lose the Jotun in the process of doing that. So no harm in actually putting the Dakini there, but unfortunately Dakini loses the shootout, and the Jotun, I think, crits me and kills me or something crazy like that. Flash Pulse spot moving out to go against the Jotun. You can see the Dazyu's out in the midfield and the Jotun's over here. And the Flash Pulse is sitting there because, again, if he goes to blow up the objectives and gets Flash Pulsed instead, then I might win that way. And Flash Pulse initially doesn't get blown up by the arrow from the Jotun, so we're looking good. Alright, so my opponent's final tournament in the game, he decides to move out with the Bagmari, and this is to detonate both mines, so he's sacrificing himself, and to shoot the HMG at the flash pulse spot, which we saw in the previous photo, just to make it easier for the Jotun. Now, I'm absolutely stoked that he's doing this, because this is at least one order that he's not using to designate objectives and destroy them. So that basically cuts an order from his pool. The Bagmari is destroyed by, I think, a combi rifle shot or the mines or something like that. And there you go. Bagmari is out of play. The Jotun now moves forward and potentially gets flash pulsed by the Dazyu and the flash pulse spot, because the Bagmari did not actually destroy the flash pulse spot in the previous shootout. So my opponent slits burst And those 2 split bursts are also down to a single shot, I believe. No, that's not how it happened. I think he did 3 and then 1, which is the smarter thing to do. Anyway, what happens here is he rolls a crit against the Dazu, exactly the roll he needs, and he rolls a crit against the flashball spot, like a double crit on each individual target. So I was like, what can I do about that? Crazy luck at this point from the Jotun, making it a lot easier to progress and blowing up the objective. So I'm feeling like that has basically lost the game right there. The Crocman is, I keep calling him the Crocman, but he's actually an Order Sergeant, stands up now and starts actually whittling away at the objectives, passing some whip checks, and eventually designating enough of them that my opponent can destroy 2 more and go up to, I think, 4 objectives destroyed, which is what he needs to win the game. So designating a whole bunch of them, as you can see here. Then what he decides to do is to move the Bagmari out. Now, the point of moving the Bagmari, not the Bagmari, the Kamau out, is that he can fire a sniper rifle at 2 different objectives, and they both have to take 2 armor saves each. And this could be slightly more efficient than doing it with the Jotun, because the Jotun has to roll a single shot, which could miss at close range, and then potentially the objective can still survive, because making 3 armor saves could just survive. Whereas the Kamau is effectively forcing 2 armor saves worth of damage per hit, so if he hits twice, that's effectively 4 rolls rather than 3. So moving the Kamau out and actually shooting the objectives, and does manage to destroy 1. Great. Joan has her coordinated order, which she can now do, and this is a really smart play because it allows him to coordinate Joan and the Jotun and the Kamau all onto the same objective, which is a surefire way of destroying it, right? So Joan has a double action round, so does the Kamau, and the Jotun's got an explosive round. So doing that allows him to destroy the 4th objective that he needs to destroy. And at that point, he runs out of orders. So Pano have designated 4 and destroyed 4. So you get 3 points for designating more and 3 points for destroying more. So that's 6 points. And all I've managed to do is destroy his designated target with my Datatracker. So it's a 6-4 win to Pano. Or is it? Hold the phone just a second. Hold the phone, guys. Actually, we realized later that this objective up in the corner here had not been designated by either of us. And the last one in the middle that was not destroyed, further out here, not pictured in the photo, was still designated by me at the end of it. So if we just go back a couple of photos, what the Order Sergeant actually ended up doing was picking up this one here, which he destroys, and picks up this one here, which he destroys, but he never got around to picking up this one, which has got a white dot in it because it's controlled by Aleph. So of the 2 remaining objectives, one of them was designated by me, meaning that I'd destroyed 3 which I designated, and designated a 4th one. And there was the final 9th one, which neither of us got to. So my opponent does get plus 3 points for blowing up more objectives that were designated, but we had designated the same number in terms of actually pressing the button on them, hitting them. So we both got 2 objective points for that. So my opponent gets, 3 for the objectives being blown up, and then 2 points for having designated the same as me, so he's got 5 points. Whereas I get 2 points for having designated the same number, plus another 4 points for this whole thing with the Datatracker killing his designated target. So it's actually a 6-5 win to Aleph, when nobody was really expecting that, the way that final turn played out. Really fun game, really close game. I got quite lucky in some spots because my heavy rocket launcher guy turned out to tank really, really well. So that went pretty good, and I did manage to actually get the damage I needed on my objectives in the end. My opponent got really lucky to get crits on everything he needed to crit in a lot of spots, but he also got very, very unlucky I should say, to fail a lot of whip checks with the Order Sergeant, but more importantly, fail a lot of attempts with a Jotun, who missed several times, and there were some objectives where the dice rolls just tanked everything, and didn't die. So he was very unlucky in that regard. My opponent might have been able to do a little bit more at the end, but being a bit more order efficient with coordinated orders to get another attempt at actually designating the central objective, but it didn't happen that way. A very slim win to OLF. There's probably more I could have done in my turns and better decisions I could have made here and there, but generally happy with how things went. And as always, hope you guys enjoy this one. See you next time.